If you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz, and I'm here today with...
Zero.
How you doing this week?
A little exhausted.
Oh, man.
I'm trying to shift back to working 8-hour days because the last few weeks I've been having to do 12-hour days to make up for losing a day of work and everything. So it's been kind of a shock to the system. My body's just like, what are you doing? You're sleeping in too late. And I'm just like,
oh,
God damn it.
Oh, yeah, that sucks. So we are here today to review the 2016 romantic thriller, The Handmaiden, directed by Park Chan-wook. Zero, I think the one thing that you were happy with when watching this movie is that finally we can get past the entire watching films filled with a lot of violence and sex. Oh, wait.
Yeah, this one is a bit more on the lurid side, so fair warning for anyone listening to this: if sexual acts and occasional violence are a bit disturbing and maybe even depictions of suicidal ideation disturb you, I would probably skip this review.
This would be a movie where if you're not sure, go to IMDb and go to the Parent's Guide and take a look at what's in it. I would say the violence isn't that bad, but I would say more of the sexual stuff is more extreme in this movie. So we may talk about it during the review, but there's the one scene that did bother me a little bit had to do with sex in this movie. So we'll get into that as the review goes on. Let's get right into the plot of the movie, and I'm going to be as nondescript as possible. The plot is about Count Fujiwara, played by Jung-woo, and he has a plan to defraud Lady Hideko, played by Min-hee, of her fortune by marrying her and then sending her to an asylum afterward. He enlists the help of a pickpocket named Suk-hee, played by Tae-ri. That's about as far as I'll go with the plot, because I think you may agree, Zero, that one of the things that is a highlight of this film is probably how the plot moves on.
This is one where the less information you have, the more surprising it is. So I would probably put this up front that if you do have interest in this movie, stop the review right now, watch it first, come back and listen to the review.
Yes, absolutely great. If you are interested in it, check it out immediately.
This movie is actually based off of a novel by Welsh writer Sarah Waters called The Fingersmith from 2002. And this is kind of a remix on it because it changes the setting from Victorian era Britain to Korea when it was under the rule of the Japanese colonialism that was being done during World War II. So think of this as kind of a remix on a novel and everything. The first act, kind of like Wiz alluded to, starts off with just a pickpocket being recruited to join up on a scheme to defraud a wealthy heiress for her wealth and everything, to set things up that basically just they walk out with all the cash and the heiress ends up being completely defrauded and thrown into a hole that no one can find. You see so much elaborate setup on this and everything. Then you get right to the end of the first act and it's just like, here we are, twist number one. Surprise! The pickpocket gets betrayed and instead is thrown into the hole, and you're just kind of like, oh shit.
Yeah, I think one thing to point out right away is that there are a lot of twists in this movie, and they're all executed perfectly. When you have these many twists, like there are twists in every act, and there's multiple twists in every act, but there's always the chance that a twist will ruin everything else from the movie, and that does not happen in this movie, because it just seems like they have everything figured out, and it works incredibly well.
Oh yeah, I think at one point towards the middle of Act 1 where just Lady Hideko is basically kind of like, just the Count wants to get intimate with me. I don't know what to do. And I'm just like, it's just gonna be, just something dorky like, just cuddle with me in bed, it'll be fine. And then Suk-hee just ends up kind of like going, okay, I'm here, let's talk it out. And then it's just like, nope, teach me the ways. I was just like, whoa. That got very, very, very serious very quickly.
Oh, God, yeah. But I will say this, when it comes to that element of the film. It is very lurid, it's very sexual, but I also think it's kind of the weakest part of the film, even though I think it's still good. I still like the romance element of the film when it comes to Suk-hee and Lady Hideko. But I think if you compare it to everything else in the film, I think it is its weakest element.
Where it gets interesting is after that sort of lurid sexual scene between Hideko and Sookie. Sookie ends up kind of questioning the plot, going, wow, this feels wrong. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And it's kind of funny because, of course, like, Sookie's been, like, trained for this for life. Basically, like, hey, this is the one big gig that you can make it out big and never have to worry about money for the rest of your life. And she's been waiting for kind of a heist this big, and just this one intimate moment with Lady Hideko, and just suddenly she's kind of questioning the plot, going, I don't know if I can go through with this. I actually like her as a person. I'm really questioning my motives now. And it was kind of funny. I was just like thinking maybe she ends up backstabbing the Count. Okay, let's see where this goes. And then you get to the end where both Lady Hideko and the Count end up tossing her into the asylum. It was just like, whoa, I did not see that one coming. Holy shit.
At the end of the first act, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. How are they going to justify this? And the way they justify it is in the second act with Lady Hideko, and how you actually see the next twist of the film. And I have to say, the character of Lady Hideko, who is played by Kim Min-hee, is great in all three parts. And I think it's because Kim Min-hee plays her incredibly well in all aspects of the film. Sometimes when you have a performance like this as multi-layered as this, something kind of doesn't fit and something doesn't work, but everything gels so well, from when she is a cloistered, innocent young woman who doesn't know the ways of the world, to what you realize what she really is in the second and third acts. All of it's completely believable, and all of it really works.
It's kind of amazing, the portrayal that Kim Min-hee provides as Lady Hideko, and you get to really see it, like you mentioned, come to life in part 2, because the second act really goes into the background of Lady Hideko, how she became the person she is. It's just kind of interesting, but also this is where, once again, I'll make the warning that this does get into a bit more on the explicit territory, because in Act 2, the younger version of her is being taught to recite sadistic literary works.
Oh, yeah.
And they get into just sadomasochism. If that sort of stuff is hard for you, then yeah, this is probably going to be just a difficult set of sequences for Act 2 for you, because there are just multiple scenes of her just being kind of sat in front of like some gentlemen who are basically into these sorts of erotic literary works and everything, and they're basically listening to what is essentially a preview of the book. And the purpose of the reading is to basically kind of get these buyers interested, and then potentially kick off an auction. Some of the works get more and more extreme as you see Hideko growing up and then being put into these sorts of positions of reading more and more of these sadomasochistic works and everything.
And I think what the most disturbing thing about it to me is that they portray Lady Hideko as really young when she starts, and that she's being abused while that's happening. That's, I think, the most disturbing part about it. There's one thing I want to point out in the film, and I wonder if you feel the same way, that I think the way that the film is shot and the feel of the film is incredibly effective. And I feel like it's a mix of a Marquis de Sade story and a Disney princess movie. It's weird. I think that's the right mix of this movie, and it's incredibly effective.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting comparison. I know for me, I was just kind of fascinated with the cinematography of everything.
Oh, gorgeous.
Like in the reading sections, both when she's a child and then when she's kind of a younger lady, it kind of gives this like feel that she's sort of isolated when she's reading. It's just such like a wide shot that it just kind of makes her seem like she's just isolated and away from everything. And then there are moments where the photography composition is just kind of tightened up, so it kind of makes it feel like it becomes a very intimate setting. It's just a very interesting use of just the photography there, and it is kind of used to dramatic effect in some of those scenes.
The way that some of the scenes are shot that are outside, that are in large woods or in water or anything like that, they're done in a way that are exaggerated but very, I guess, fairy tale like. And it really gives this film a very grand feeling, even though it's a very intimate and personal movie. And just the way that the film feels, along with the music. Like, the music is actually very good at accentuating certain things in the film. I really think that the way that they used that juxtaposition was incredibly effective. It's something I really liked about the movie.
Act 2 gets a bit interesting because as you sort of see Hideko's sort of descent into madness and everything and darkness, the Count sort of enters her life, and then of course her uncle basically tells the Count, "Oh yeah, she's as cold as ice. You won't get any sex out of her. Just she's a dead fish." When the Count realizes just like her massive wealth, he begins kind of like trying to put on his charms and everything, and of course it's just kind of falling flat. And then the Count kind of comes up with this plot going, how about you elope with me? That way, basically, just find a way to get rid of your uncle, and then we'll split the inheritance. It'll be great. And that's sort of when you kind of see the other side of this whole plot taking place. And at that point, it kind of shows you that Lady Hideko is not the maiden in distress as she seems. She definitely has claws of her own. Act 2 kind of gives you a sort of like a different person's perspective from basically the events of Act 1 and how they closed out. And it's more focused on Lady Hideko's perspective, which again is interesting because it's yet again sort of another perspective to the story. And once again, we've got yet another lurid scene. So again, it's something to be aware of, especially if you're kind of watching it in or around company that may be a little bit kind of squeamish or prudish to sexual act depictions.
Yeah, watch this privately if you have to. that's how I would look at it. Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of interesting to sort of see yet another twist happen in part 3, but also the story kind of coming to a close as well too, because I know when the twist in Act 3 came up, I was just like, oh no, this is going to end so sloppy. They're just going to find a way just to shoehorn an ending, aren't they?
But it didn't. I think that it was really effective in that. Like, all the twists, I think, worked incredibly well in this movie.
It was just kind of surprising to kind of see them just bring the story to a close.
Yeah. No.
Because just that's what worries me when a movie gets real ambitious and goes, hey, we're going to put twist upon twist upon twist, and you're not going to know what's coming. And then with some of these movies that end up being overly ambitious with that sort of thought, it ends up being something like, oh shit, we don't know how to bring the entire story to a close. Quick, just throw something together and just toss it on the script, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then of course in the final product you're just like, wow, that is the sloppiest ending I've ever seen.
My question is going to be, when I see it a second time, will it still hold, knowing what all the twists are? Because that's really the true test. Because if I watch it a second time and go, oh wait, actually that doesn't make any sense, then you got a problem. But after a first watch, I think this movie's brilliant. I love this movie. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, same here. It's a little more lurid than what I'm normally into, but this was kind of one of those sorts of things that I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to come at it with an open mind and just kind of sit in for the ride.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's get into the footnotes for The Handmaiden. Zero, give us yours.
This film is a bit interesting to me because of the fact that South Korea has a very, very strict policy on pornography. Actually, scratch that. I don't think strict is the best word. It's fucking illegal. For me, with how lurid this was, I was just like, I'm surprised that the Korean Film Board actually let this see a release in Korea. It genuinely surprised me, especially with just how lurid some of the depictions of sexual acts are. I was just like, wow, these are very, very lurid.
Mm-hmm. And not only is it like lurid in the way of what you're looking at, one thing I really want to point out is the sound effects. Like, holy shit. I am listening to this, like on the one hand I was like, this is a little overboard, because it kind of sounds like they're eating like really loudly, but on the other hand I was like, oh damn. Whoa. Because like, you're literally looking and goes, I'm like, oh my god. Like, what the hell? But like, it kind of fits with the rest of the film and the slight over-exaggeration of everything in this movie, because of the way that the scenes look and the way that everything is shot. It kind of makes sense. But I can sense somebody going, no one eats pussy that loud. You know? All right, Zero. So overall, do you recommend, not recommend The Handmaiden?
Recommend, but with a very, very, very strong warning of, if you are not into lurid sexual acts and narrations of sadomasochism and suicidal ideation, and possibly graphic violence, then do not watch this movie under those circumstances. But if you've got an open mind and that stuff does not bother you, then by all means, definitely give this one a watch.
This will be a film that, if you are interested, please check the Parents Guide, check websites that tell you what's in the film before you give it a watch, because the trailers and the poster does not really reflect what is in the movie. I will say I highly recommend this movie. This was a great movie. I have, at this point, watched, I think, about 70-ish films this year, and this is going to be in my top 10 easily for first watches. An excellent movie. Performances are great in this movie. The way it's shot is really good. I have to point out Kim Min-hee in this movie. I think she is the best performance in this movie by far. But the story and the twists that happen in this movie all land incredibly well. They're all incredibly surprising at the end as well. So, Zero, do you recommend The Handmaiden?
Yes, but only if you're fine with the warnings that we've been providing throughout this entire review.
All right, so that means we both recommend The Handmaiden. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. Thank you for listening to this review. If you want to know what we're reviewing in the next couple of days, you can look on the screen right now to see what's coming up next. If you like what you heard, go ahead and leave a like on this video. If you want to discuss your opinion on the film or the review itself, please leave a comment. And if you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. Thank you again for listening. I will talk to you next time.